Straw Hut Media.
Hi, I'm Paul Feig. I'm here on Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. And you know what? I'm going to be alone with Jake Hogan. I don't care what they say, because I love Jake Hogan. And being alone with Jay is better than having Jay at a party, because then I have to share Jay. And I want Jay all to myself. So here I am, alone with Jake Hogan.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Hi, and welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. I'm your host, Jake Hogan. And today I have an incredible guest. His name is Paul Feig, and I'll tell you a little bit about him in a second. But first, I want to implore you to do something that you don't want to do. You don't want to do it, but you're going to do it anyway, which is subscribe to my damn show. You have to like it or press subscribe or something, especially if you're on YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. Even if you don't watch it on YouTube, subscribe to it on YouTube. You know why? Because I need a summer house. And my summer house is completely dependent upon how many people subscribe to this show. Right now, producer Ryan has told me we need about, 10,000, 11,000 subscribers to for this show to start making money. And right now we have 31. If you press subscribe and show me a photo of your subscription, I will send you back something very special. And write to me at dbawjk@gmail.com. Show me a little photo of your subscription, and I'm going to send you back something, a photo or a comment or something, a rarity from my collection of rarities. Anyway, I would appreciate it. Paul Feig is a guest today. Paul Feig, one of the great directors, comedy directors of our time. And he's a guy who kind of created his look and his life just from an idea that he could, which is fascinating to me. I was kind of born into Los Angeles and show business. He was not. And he sort of found his way here, and every step of the way made the right choices. He made mistakes. Sure, he did. But he got more and more into who he wanted to be. And now he is fully realized as Paul Feig. And Paul Feig is only one thing, which is a well-dressed, really nice, pleasant, warm guy who cares about people and cares about the world. Gee whiz, I would like to be some better version of myself. The question really is, do I just live my life as Jake Hogan, or do I think specifically about who I want to be and work to become that person? Right now, I've taken the easy path, which is just go with the flow and be myself. But what would happen if I chose more? What would happen if I was more directed and more careful and more goal-oriented into who I became? What do you think? Do you think you could will yourself into becoming something more than you are? Or is it just enough to be the authentic version of you? That's the question, and that's what we'll be talking to Paul about, amongst many other things, including growing up in Michigan and being a near alcoholic. So we'll talk to him about all those things right after this.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Are we recording? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to officially welcome you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a thrill to have. I'm going to talk to my camera.
Hey. I got a camera.
That's
Hi,
your camera.
Hey, camera 4.
Yeah. It's a thrill for me to have an old friend of mine here with me, but he's not here because he's an old friend of mine. He's here because you love his movies. So this is Paul Feig, everybody.
Hey,
welcome, Paul Feig.
Thank you, Jay.
Paul Samuel Feig.
Paul, so yes.
Yeah.
I demand you use my middle name.
We've known each other for many, many years.
So long.
I knew you before you were a famous director.
Mm-hmm.
I saw one of your earliest films.
Yes.
And I believe at the time I said, get out of the business.
I think you did.
Yeah,
and I foolishly did not listen to
do
you.
not do this anymore. And increasingly, it's interesting as I watch my career, I watch your career grow in steps and bits and pieces from a really good actor, really good actor. You don't act
limited
enough.
But fun.
No, really good actor. You don't act enough still. You should act more. I wrote you a part you couldn't do on a show we had, but I'm going to write you again another part. But you started writing stuff, which was great.
Yeah.
And, a little tentatively, but you started writing stuff and then you started directing stuff and you started making stuff and you grew and got better at it, but also there's something about you that exudes some sort of creative partnership.
Oh, well,
I think that, and you this is in form of a question.
Yes.
What is it that makes you so collaborative where perhaps other people aren't? What are you doing that everybody wants to work with you and loves to work with you and feels safe working with you?
Thanks. I mean, I'm a fan first and foremost, so I really like people and I kind of want to work with them, especially when it comes to actors, but I mean, creative people, right. All that. But I just learned early in my career when I was trying to be a control freak that it was just completely diminishing returns because all I'm doing is cutting off creativity of other people because I have some vision that I think is so great. And, you know, I'm doing comedy. Right. So, you know, you can't do comedy in a vacuum. And, you know, when I would be acting or whatever, when I would try to do stuff, someone get slapped down by somebody or, you know, so just stick to the script or whatever, it was kind of demoralizing. Right. And I just always kind of felt like I've got a lot to give.
And
if
you're
you
talking about Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah,
Tom Hanks
oh my God, yeah.
Jesus
a monster. Good old
right.
Tom.
Yeah.
I love Tom.
I get it a little bit. I mean, do get like, especially, you know, you're a writer and a director, and so when you write, and one of my very favorite movies of all time, not just one of your, Spy, is
thanks.
a great movie.
Thank you.
It's a tribute, it's a love note to James Bond, but it's its own funny, weird, great world.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm a huge fan of this movie. But if I wrote this script that I loved, I'd want them to do. Right. The script, do the words. Now, I don't want to, like I said, tamp down creativity, but eventually I'd like to see at least most of that, or a lot of that, are you know, I want to hear it. Yeah. Maybe it's not great, but I want to hear it and then play if we're in the scene or in the moment.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I try to do that, although I'm not even kind of the guy of like, let's just get one exactly as scripted. It's I like when it happens, but the minute somebody starts doing their own voice, you know, I've always just said it's like I'm not inside their mouth, if you know what I mean, which sounds terrible. Right. But because everybody says something.
It's worse if you are inside. Yeah,
well, it is.
So the way you said is much better
if they haven't brushed, especially.
Exactly.
But you know, so everybody talks differently. Right. So I can construct a joke. I mean, I had this happen when I was working on a sitcom and directing one, and basically the showrunner had a joke. He wanted this very unique comedian actor to seven. Again, I'm not naming names because I'm very political.
Sure.
And so, but that actor had a really funny way of delivering it. So I was like, oh, that's really funny. And this guy was like, he's got to say it as written. So I had to go in like, okay, let's try it again like this. And this happened, I mean, this was 15 times, 15 takes in. Okay. And suddenly that actor was like, man, this guy's killing me, blah, blah, blah. So suddenly he turned on me. Right. And I finally went to the showrunner. He said, like, if you want him to say it, you go in and do a line reading for him. Because, and it wasn't right. Because when the guy finally did it wasn't funny because it was written for this one guy's voice and into this other person's mouth.
The writer, that happens constantly in the writer's room where some writer says some line and it's really funny the way the writer says it. Yeah. And then they have written it for this actor who can't say it that way. Yeah. And we've heard it already in the writer's room, done the other way. Exactly. Like, that was so funny. Can they do it? And that's just not how it works.
No, it's just, you got to be really open to stuff. It'd be one thing if I was like, every time they didn't do it right and I got the editing room, it's like, oh man, they fucked that all up. Right. But I can't tell you how often somebody delivers something in a way I'm like, oh God, okay, well, we got that. Okay, that's great, we got that. I'm always trying to be positive. Right. And I get back to the editing room, and it actually turns out to be far better than anything I wanted. Right. And then, and sometimes people go like, they'll go like, just give me a line reading. When I do it, it immediately sounds terrible, Right. And you're like, oh, just do it the way you want to.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's always embarrassing. Well, here's the line reading.
Exactly. They're like, thanks.
Yeah. No, I mean, you beg to try and find a way to get them motivated into saying it the way you want it to, and so that they can use the process. Yeah. So it's natural.
Yeah. As a director, I mean, that's, you work with all kinds of actors, and some people are very just like, just tell me what to do. Tell me this. Other people who I've worked with, like, I had one actress I worked with who was really amazing. But I remember my biggest compliment on set is, oh my God, that was so hilarious when you did that. And most people, comedic people like that. Right. So I'd come into her like, oh my God, it's so funny when you smiled at the end,
Right.
and she's like, "Oh, results, results." She started yelling results. I go like, "Oh," and I hadn't worked with like a real method person before,
Right.
And I was like, "Oh shit, okay." So then I had to realize, okay, I think at the end, I think you're feeling better about this,
Right.
and that gives you some kind of a joy.
Right.
Okay, and they got it. So
Right.
set the process a different way.
Give them
and I
motivation.
respect that because they turn in a great performance.
So, Paul, this podcast is called "Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan."
Yes. And yet here I am,
and yet
alone
here you
with you,
are,
and I'm
alone with
very
Jake
nervous.
Hogan.
Exactly.
And I talk about my issues with smart, interesting people such as yourself who might have a take on the issue. And so my issue this week is about how much of Jake Hogan, how much of myself should I try to create or recreate or be responsible for sort of giving my life a push in one direction or another, or my look or my style or whatever, and how much of it is just, well, you're born this way, life has hit you in a lot of things, and you've been taught through the world to just go and just be your authentic self and don't worry about the rest.
Jay, are you talking about branding?
A little bit.
Okay.
But not but branding, but also just like you're a guy who comes from Mount Clemens.
Yes.
Far away from the world of show business, but you created yourself in a way that made yourself show busy. Like you have become show busy, and you have a love of show business. You've had a love of show business forever. But,
I truly do.
But you've embraced in a way that I don't think I grew up in Los Angeles. I have not embraced show business in kind of the way that you have.
Interesting.
And not only have you created yourself in terms of as a director, as a writer, that you've grown into many things that you sort of willed yourself forward, but you have a look.
Yeah.
You've cultivated a look, you've cultivated a style, you've cultivated a brand. You have a brand of booze. You have things that are you're developed yourself in a way that, in a strange way, it's like an alternative universe Cary Grant. Like,
I love that. Okay. A really unattractive Cary Grant.
But it's like Archibald Leach was one person.
Yeah.
And Cary Grant was another person.
Yeah.
You aren't different people. You're still Paul. But you're a different Paul than I knew 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You're definitely much more self-assured. You're definitely your clothes are different. Everything. There's a lot about you that's different, and I respect it.
Thanks.
And it is. How did you come to decide what are the things I want to change and grow about myself, and what are the things I'm going to leave to be good old Paul?
Yeah, I mean, interesting, fascinating question, John.
I am a fascinating guy.
You really are. Yeah. You deserve your own podcast. Wait a minute.
Right.
What's going on?
Yeah.
It's interesting, just even starting from the idea that you grew up here.
Right.
And I grew up in Michigan.
Right.
So you were surrounded by the industry town.
Right.
And for me, it was a mystical, magical place that I didn't even think you could have a career in.
Right.
But I would then see pictures of this mystical, magical place of like Alfred Hitchcock on the set, and John Ford on the set, and all these other directors from the 30s and 40s. Everybody's wearing suits and ties. Everybody looked so cool. And so I was just kind of like, oh, that's what it looks like when you make a movie. That's what Hollywood is. So when I came out, out here, back in 81 to be a tour guide at Universal Studios. I mean, I think I always had a style. I always wanted to have a style. And a lot of it was based on things I would see. I think I've spent my whole life wanting to be other people.
Yeah.
And so the first time I decided I really should dress up was back when I was like 6 or 7 or 8. I forget what it was. And Groucho Marx was my hero. And so I read this biography of Groucho and it said, Groucho never trusted a man who didn't dress well. So that was my first time. Like, oh my God, I got to dress well. And so started getting GQ and all these things and looking at that and going like, I want to be the guy that dresses up now.
Right.
And it was from watching movies with my mom of, Cary Grant movies and all that stuff, like you said, and, all the, the usual touchstones, Fred Astaire.
Sure.
And just they look really cool.
They do. They're classy. They're almost otherworldly in many ways, but we're living in the real world.
Yeah.
So, so how much of that do you decide, well, I think I can embrace this percentage of that fantasy and bring it to my life?
I guess for me, it was kind of this slow realization that I can kind of do whatever I want as far as my look.
Right.
Because when I was first kind of starting to direct, it was like, oh, you're down in the dirt and all this stuff. Even though I had that image of directors now, I'd worked, as an actor for so long and saw, nobody dressed up really. There were some guys that would kind of wear a nice sweater or whatever, and I was like, oh yeah, because you're down on the ground setting up shots, and so you're going to get dirty and all this. And then just one day when I decided I wanted to flip the narrative,
right,
went like, well, I'll get some cheap suits, and if I get them dirty, I get them dirty.
Right.
And then by wearing those suits, the response that I got was really
What was the response? What was that response?
It was great. Like crew people would come up like, hey, I think it's really great that you dress up like this, and the actors liked it.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Did you feel that you got more respect / authority from the suit?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I think what it did is it focused me as the captain of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my famous quote, it's
Right.
not really famous, but I say it all the time, is I'm the captain of the ship. I want to dress like the captain. If I get on a ship and the captain's wearing sweatpants, then I'm going to get off the ship because I
Right.
don't trust that captain.
Right.
So, and it's also such an honor to get to do what I do that I can't show up like, unshaved. I can't roll out of bed. Also, I just can't focus. Like I need that morning ritual of getting ready, putting on a tie, putting on my suit. And then more than anything, it makes me feel in charge and just more legitimate, I guess, more than anything.
So part of it is to give yourself a little authority in your own brain. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm walking the walk, I'm talking the talk, and then I must be a director because look at me.
Right, I'm
Yeah.
the boss. Well, my father, owned an army surplus store, which which is one of the dirtiest kind of stores you can own.
Was he selling dirt? Why?
No,
he was
just
selling
old
tents and jumpsuits and things. Yeah,
old fatigues,
Yeah.
old, everything's sticky and old. Arc surplus.
surplus. I did
Yes.
some research.
Oh my goodness,
I did
thank you,
some-
Jay.
But so it's a dirty store.
Yeah, and and he's in the back, the warehouse, pulling down boxes and all this stuff. But he always wore like a sports jacket, a tie, and slacks. Always, he had a uniform
Right.
that he would wear, and I was like, "Oh, I get." And so that was in my head of like, "Oh, when you're an adult and you work
Right.
as a man, you
Right.
dress up."
Okay.
So I had that, but if I can go to sort of the genesis of, I think, my current
Right.
self, when we were doing Freaks and Geeks, I just went into this weird thing of like, I'm going to dress like a high schooler, so I grew my hair out long
Right.
because it was that era that we were shooting.
Right.
And I just would wear jeans and a t-shirt and like an Oxford shirt open over the top. And for some reason that made me feel like I was a teenager, even though I never dressed like
Right.
that as a teenager. I was a disco guy back then. So when the show was done and I was taking meetings because, people thought they wanted to work with me, I would dress like that and go into these meetings and everybody would be in suits and ties, dressed up, and they
Right.
put you on the low couch,
Right.
the old low
Yeah,
couch
yeah.
you always pitch on when your
Right.
knees are in your face. And I was just like, I don't like this dynamic at all
Uh-huh.
because I'm pitching to them and they're kind of like judging me. So I go, I used to dress in suits when I was a kid. I'm just going to do it again.
See, I just think those executives dream of walking into a room in jeans.
Well, here's what happened, Jay.
Yeah,
Here's what happened.
right.
This is the year 2000.
Yeah.
In the year 2000.
Yeah.
So I get these suits and I dress up for my suit. I go in somehow in the time between that meeting and then when I decided I wanted to do this, an edict went out saying, everybody, we're going to dress like the artists. We are tired of being the suits.
Right.
So it's on. I come into this meeting. I'm wearing a suit and tie. They're all in jeans and t-shirts.
Right.
You would think they would go like, "Oh my gosh, we made a mistake." Immediately the mind switch they did was like, "Oh, look at this poor sap. He put on his Sunday best
Right.
to come to a meeting,"
Right.
and it's just like. But I was like, you know what? I like the look of this better than I liked when
Right.
I was in before.
That's obviously the most important thing is how do you feel in your own skin? How do you feel about like Cary Grant felt better being Cary Grant than he did being Archibald Leach for
Exactly.
a million reasons.
Exactly.
But he didn't like who he was when he was Archibald Leach. He liked Cary Grant and he strove even well after he needed to be
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah,
because
I
of
totally
his
get
comfort
that.
level.
I had something very similar happen. It was like, I think it was after Freaks and Geeks, so things were going much better.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I went with Laurie, my wife, to the Beverly Center before the Beverly Center.
Laurie
Before the Beverly
Gilbert
Center was
Feig
terrible. Laurie
is
Gilbert
one of the
Feig.
best people on the face of the earth.
Here.
Okay, so you have to say that because you're married.
Yeah.
I don't have to say that.
Oh, hooray.
She's just wonderful, and you're married, and she was among the most encouraging people to me when I was first starting out.
Oh,
too.
that's great.
She's just because she's a manager and she knows comedy and she knows all kinds of
And
stuff.
she's a huge fan of yours, too.
And when she says you're great, she has a voice where you kind of believe it. You go, oh, she thinks I'm great. I must be great. So I owe her a lot.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
well, she's
so-
such a good spotter of talent.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were at the Beverly Center, and I, for some reason, just went out of the house. I was dressing in suit and tie, but for some reason, I was just in jeans like a T-shirt. I forget why. We had to go do something. And we're walking around, and suddenly I got really depressed. And she's like, "What's wrong?" I said, I don't like looking like this in public. It reminds me of when I was not doing well.
Right.
And it's weird. Like suddenly, so I relate to Archibald Leach.
Right. So now, when you see me walking into the room
Yes.
wearing basically the same thing I've worn for the last 50 years.
But that's your
which is
uniform.
your jeans or shorts, sort of button-down shirt probably, and a T-shirt maybe underneath it, and some kind of hat.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I've been doing for forever because I don't think about it.
Right.
But it's juvenile. It's not. It doesn't carry with it any authority. It's the opposite of authority.
Well, it carries fun.
Yeah, it carries with it, oh, this is a fun time, but it's not like I'm going to give this guy millions of dollars to make my movie. There's a real difference between that.
Well, if you're going to that meeting, I
Yeah.
would suggest putting on a jacket.
Okay, well, there you go.
No, but you have a style. This I always, say to guys in general, especially, is just have a style. Pick a style that tells the world who you are, who you want the world to think you are.
I dressed in the uniform of a writer.
Yeah.
So every writer I knew dressed the way I did, and that was
Yeah.
the uniform. Now, my partner at the time, Wally Wolodarski,
Yes.
whom I also love, and
Yeah,
no
the
longer
greatest.
my partner, but just wonderful guy.
Fantastic.
I would wear this, like a polo shirt and jeans. He would look much, much sloppier. Much, much sloppier. He wore different shoes and different socks, and he dressed a little crazy. And I was like, oh, you're going to make us look ridiculous in this meeting. Oh my God. And people would love him. And he came off as an eccentric artist. And,
Right.
that's just Wally. And there was never any blowback
Right.
at all from it. So my whole idea of dress with authority went way out the window.
Well, but I guess it's really it's matching his personality so well. I know Wally so well too, and because he's kind of an eccentric, kind of quirky guy,
Right.
and so that adds to it.
A little bit of a curmudgeon. I mean, that's the other thing. Is like putting on two different shoes is a little bit of like "fuck you, authority."
Yeah, exactly.
Which
I'll
is
show
what
you.
I didn't want to say in the meetings with the authority. Like
He's just telling you to fuck off.
That's the authority, exactly.
But sometimes they love it because
Yeah.
it's like John Rickles making fun of
Right.
people. They love it.
Right. At Mount Clemens, apparently there's a guy named Peter Taco.
Pete Toko.
Pete Toko?
Yeah.
You did a talent show with him?
He was my comedy partner.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You still, Maureen Mullen wants to know if you're still in touch with him.
Oh, hello, Marine.
Yeah.
Every few years, Pete and I he'll either come into LA for something that he's got to do,
Right.
or I'll hear from him. Yeah, we don't keep in close
But
contact.
do you have the same sort of comedic touchstones with each other?
We did and we didn't. We were kind of both different. I mean, it was a real, honestly, it was like a Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin type of a thing. He was kind of cooler than I was,
right.
and I was the goofball. And yeah, we hosted talent shows, and we just kind of did everything together.
When you're bringing your comedic eye towards your movies,
Yes.
I mean, it's everything. I know the answer is going to be everything, but are you concentrating on the story first and foremost? Where's the funny in the scene first and foremost? What is the character going through first and foremost, or is it just everything?
Well, I mean, it depends what phase we're in.
Mm-hmm.
In development, it's story and characters first.
Right.
And I like to develop any comedy script like a drama because I need to make sure that the emotional track of it is right. Because first of all, that's what audiences tap into.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I know anybody who's going to make this thing, that's all they're going to tap into
Right.
and ask questions about. But, that's the thing that gives the actors what to do. And it's just really what pulls us along. I mean, if you watch, I love Jacques Tati, but if you watch Mr. Hulot's Holiday, it says right at the beginning, there is no story in this movie. And even though there's hilarious bits in it, it feels like the longest movie you've ever seen in your life. It's only like an hour and a half.
Every single guest comes on and talks about that movie. And Jacques Tati, I don't know.
I know, enough with the Jacques Tati. Jesus.
Yeah, no, this is, you can get, things can get tiresome.
We need to get pulled along,
Sure.
and you need to have stakes. And the other thing is just there has to be real danger. I feel, whether it's emotional danger or but those are the stakes.
Talk about conflict.
Conflict, yes.
Conflict stakes.
There you go.
Okay,
Isn't that interesting?
I'm with you.
Hey,
I'm with you. I'm
come on,
listening.
Sid Field. Exactly. Bring it on.
Yeah. No, I say to people who are writing scripts all the time, it's like, what's your story?
Yeah.
And they said, what's the difference between a comedic story and a dramatic story? I said, none.
Yeah.
Absolutely none.
Totally.
The story itself has to have the same amount of stakes, has to feel important, and has to have emotional stakes, and the characters need to be growing and all that stuff. And it's just the tone at which you hit that story is the difference between a comedy and a drama.
And how the characters react to things. You
Right.
know, that's really where I find most of my favorite funny comes from,
Right.
and how extreme the characters are.
And if you want to get an award, you probably have to go with the drama.
First of all, let's just say chasing awards is the killer of comedy.
Right.
It's taken down a lot of great comedy directors that I love. Everybody's trying to be legitimate. Mm-hmm. So I blame the industry. It's right now we're taping this. It's Oscar weekend.
That's right.
And I just don't like the Oscars, even though I'm in the Academy and I've directed, promotions for them and all that. Mm-hmm. And I love, I like the people in it. But it's just, why is there this competition that makes those of us who really want to entertain an audience generally feel like shit?
Right. Well, I mean, ultimately it's a commercial prospect. It's advertising for the movies.
Yeah, but it's become so just like...
It wasn't always. I mean, I guess in
it's always been
1934 or whenever it started, it wasn't that. It was just like, hey, here's some awards, guys. Yeah. It was a luncheon. But as soon as it became a publicity machine, then that's what it is.
Oh, no, totally.
Yeah.
But it's if you really entertain an audience, the fact that, thank goodness Barbie got nominated for Best Picture, but when everybody was saying it was such a snub against Greta, I'm like, welcome to being a comedy director. We never get lauded.
Right.
You either get commercial success or you get the awards. Right. But, there's nothing wrong with awards in per se. I just think when people start chasing them, I'm speaking as somebody who made this mistake.
Right.
Because right after Freaks and Geeks, the first movie I did, legitimate movie, was this thing called I Am David. Yeah. Which, got sent to me as a book. I was coming off, my mom had just died, so I was kind of in this weird place. And I remember kind of reading this and then pitching to my agent, and he goes, wow, if you did that, you'd be like Steve Zalian or something. Right. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, this is my awards play. Mm-hmm. So went into this, sincerely wanting to make it good, but at the same time back in my head, like, wow, this is like Oscar stuff. And it just, I'm very happy with the movie, but it didn't scratch any itch that anybody wanted to be scratched from me. And I think that's the biggest thing, going back to who you are and what your brand is, which sounds gross, is what do people want from you once you've established your voice? Because it's very frustrating. If you watch a movie with your favorite comedy star in it, and oh my God, there they are, and they're playing completely dramatic, it's so frustrating because you're sitting there going like, I know they're going to be funny. It's just something, it's coming. They're going to be funny. And then they're not. And you're just like, well, why did I get that? It's like Michael Jordan playing baseball. Like nobody wanted to see that.
I guess, but then every now and then you get a Michael Keaton or somebody, you're like, holy shit, he's such a great actor.
But he never loses his sense of humor in it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. As opposed to some just go like, I have to drain every ounce of comedy out of myself. But if they're in a drama, but they're still kind of, they're not just forcing their face to be still.
Right.
That's the thing, you know. You just got to bring elements of what people want out of you. Unless you're Robert De Niro or whatever, and people go, or Meryl Streep, and you go, oh, she's different every time.
I think actors don't know what people want from them a lot of the time.
No, that's why it's up to us as filmmakers to do it.
And then you can tell, someone, hey, you know what people really like about you is that madcap crazy thing. It's like, oh, I hate that about myself. That's the thing. That's the one thing that they don't want to do. Yeah. But then they can't help doing it.
Well, my favorite way to develop for people, or when I have a script that I want to cast, is to meet with somebody who's, known, whether they're really famous or just kind of people know them, and just have lunch or have a drink with them, because I just want to see what's funny about them.
Right.
Because it's usually not what they're portraying on the screen, especially if they're like a dramatic actor.
Can you?
Yeah.
Do you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was, Chris Hemsworth when I had lunch with him, and just like, God, Chris, you're really funny, you know, and so I want you to be in Ghostbusters, but I don't want you to use an accent other than your real accent.
Right.
You know, Michelle Yeoh, when I got to know Michelle Yeoh, suddenly like, holy shit, Michelle, you're really funny. So I was able to put her in Last Christmas and do that. You know, they had that several, and Statham, you know, I mean, just go like, I think you could be really funny just making fun of yourself.
So back to my original question about creating myself. So if I could recreate myself as somebody else.
Yeah. Who would it be?
I guess I would recreate myself as somebody with more authority to do stuff, I guess.
Right.
So that I take myself a little bit more seriously, and maybe other people would take me a little bit more seriously. Maybe.
I don't think
I'm
you
not
need
sure
to do
that's so
that.
much fun. Doesn't sound like so much fun, but maybe.
No.
What would you, if you have 20 more years to do something, what aren't you doing now, or what would you like to do that you haven't done, or that you think, I'm going to aim at this?
Oh, right. I mean, I'm in a very lucky position where I'm actually doing what I love.
Right.
So,
but I'm saying that's over.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yes.
Well, it could be any day now.
Ripping
Trust
that
me.
away. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think I would concentrate on my whole cocktail thing.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy that, and I would really love to have a line of clothing. I had one time I had a line of clothing at J. Crew.
Okay.
Paul Feig for J. Crew. It was just a limited thing that sold out immediately. It was great.
That's fantastic.
And then the people who did it all got fired, so they've never done it again.
Because it sold out? Why would they get fired?
They restructured the whole company.
Right.
But I really enjoyed that.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
What made you start the booze? Is gin?
Yeah, my gin. Artingstall's Brilliant
Artingstall's.
London Dry Gin, yes.
I mean, there's lots of good gin out there. Why did you want your own?
Well, because I love gin. I mean, one of my whole things about my brand.
Right.
I don't want to keep saying the gross word brand.
Hey, you don't brand yourself. Here at Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan, we do not brand ourselves.
Oh, then stop branding.
Yes,
stop
do
the
not brand
branding. That I really always wanted to be an adult. I hated being a kid.
Yeah.
I just hated it.
We have that in common.
Everything I watched, everything I consumed, everything I dressed was all about like, what kind of adult do I want to be?
Right.
You know, and very big influence was Darren on Bewitched.
Right.
You know,
Really?
coming home to have not him particularly.
He was getting his ass kicked day in and day out.
But he came
by
home.
witches and his mother-in-law. You don't want to be.
I didn't mind that. I thought that'd
they
be
even
fun.
switched him out with two different actors.
Exactly.
He's the worst icon, the worst role
I know.
model of all
I'm actually
time.
Dick Sargent, so
Okay,
that's I couldn't even get Dick
Right,
York. It was
okay.
like, no, but his wife was beautiful.
Sure.
And there was a cocktail cart when he'd come in and
Sure.
a martini waiting for it. And I was like, that looks great. And so I got really obsessed with, well, being an adult means you drink martinis.
Right.
And so when I first wanted to do it, like gin was like, oh, because I had a bad experience with gin as a kid, as we all do. You kind of taste it and you're like, this smells awful. And so started doing vodka martinis, but then read this cocktail book that was very influential to me. And it said a real martini is not it's always gin.
Right.
And so I said, well, I got to do that. So basically, I was like, I got to force myself to like gin. So I just kind of taught myself to like gin, and in the process, fell in love with gin.
Right.
And but there's the old gins, the Beefeaters, and all that stuff, which are really gin. I mean, like punch in the face, juniper, pine sol. And so I started looking around over the years for ones that were friendlier and started finding them. I was like, oh, I like this. But I always knew like, ooh, if I could invent my own, I know exactly what I wanted to taste like.
Yeah.
And so finally was just able to realize that dream.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The Artingstall Gin.
Yes.
Which, you just described how you came to it. Now, where can one find Artingstall Gin?
Artingstall's Brilliant London Dry Gin can be got around the country, but we're still not everywhere. The best thing to do is go to artingstallsgin.com to look up where we're at. But if you're in California or in LA, you can get it at the Flask, and you get it at Remedy Liquors and Duvan. And other places.
Now, if I wanted to use your gin in recipes for
Yes.
gin, how would I do that?
Well, Jay, I just happen to have a cocktail book I wrote.
Yes.
It's called Cocktail Time: The Ultimate Guide to Grown-Up Fun. Came out last year, and I did during the pandemic. I did a Instagram cocktail show every day at 5 o'clock for 100 days in a row. And it's really, that was the genesis of the book. All the recipes I did on that show, I put into a book, but then it just started to expand from that. And I started to do essays on how to set up your bar and how to throw a cocktail party and all this. And then lots of doofy stories from my life associated with the drinks.
Up until you wrote your book, what was the best cocktail book you'd ever seen?
Well, I love the Mr. Boston books, which they don't even make anymore.
Right.
And I just love them because it's just simple. Here's a million recipes. They're all like 3 or 4 ingredients. And it's just a fun, if you have, like I do, a love of kind of creating cocktails, you go in there and go like, oh, this is a good base to work off. And then you start to change stuff or add to it. And it's really great. So I love that. I collect the old ones because they used to come out every year.
Yeah. Now you should make the recipes in the book. You should make sure that they only work with Artingstall Gin.
Well, exactly.
Like any other gin is poisonous.
That's right. Yeah. Don't even look at the other gin.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. And is there any drink in the book named after me?
Oh, no, there's not. But
God damn it.
That's the next book,
okay,
Jay.
All right. Part 2.
The J-Teeny, exactly.
All right. So the name of the book again?
It's called Cocktail Time, The Ultimate Guide to Grown-Up Fun.
Cocktail Time.
And you can get it anywhere.
And if you have the gin and the cocktail and the outfit, and the music,
you're me. Oh yeah,
there's the music.
Every drink has a song that you're supposed to play with it.
Right, and I would watch your watched you making cocktails over the pandemic, and you had costumes. You had costumes for different recipes and things like that.
Exactly.
And
always dressing up.
And like it was you were having a lot of fun.
It was fun. I mean, it was during a time of absolute terror.
Right.
I was like, we got to do something, and it also was a great way to get dressed every day and not spend the day
having something to do.
Pajamas. Yeah, exactly. No, we had a great time doing it.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, we are approaching towards the end of our show.
Oh, no.
There's a theme we're going to play, the listener mail theme.
Now it's time for Listener Mail.
Wow.
I know. It's all pro.
This is high end.
The first question is from Max. Do you know Max Pross of Gamble &
Oh,
Pro?
I love Max Pross.
This is from Max Pross. He said, what pressure do you feel about keeping up with the kids? Culturally, I mean. Do you make a point of playing the latest video game or listening to the new Olivia Rodrigo record? If only get a sense of what the under 30 crowd is thinking or feeling? Or like me, do you stick to the age-appropriate boomer's sense of humor that's gotten you this far? And because you're afraid to come off like Bob Hope when you put up a Beatle wig and he act like, I got it, man.
Or when he rapped with Michael Crawford.
Yes, exactly.
Musically, I try to keep up, but just because I'm always using music in my movies and stuff. Video games, I have zero interest in, could care less. I'm not great at keeping up on like current TV shows and that kind of thing. And I'm constantly like, people are pitching me actors. I'm like, who's that? But then I really want to know them. So the biggest thing I've learned in my career, I'll tell you through an anecdote.
Okay.
Jay. Right. So I was directing on The Office, for multiple seasons. And then there was one season where they made me a co-EP. So I said, I want to be in the writer's room too. So sure. So we go into the writer's room and I'm sitting there, and it's kind of a younger, the Mindy Kalings and Lee and Jeans of the world and all that. So I'm probably about 10 to 15 years older than them in general. And so they're pitching a joke and it's going around the table. Everybody's kind of taking their crack at it. I'm sitting there like cat ate the canary go, I'm going to rule because this is the exact kind of joke that I'm famous for.
Right.
And so it comes around to me and I make this joke and it gets nothing. And I'm like, oh no, I'm the old guy in the room that pitched the shitty joke.
Right.
But what I realized then listening and as they went around the room and what they landed on, their joke wasn't necessarily that much different than mine. They just did it in a much more kind of current way, whatever that means. And I can't even tell you what the joke was. I forget. But so I go like, you just got to.
Were they vaping while they told the joke?
No, this is pre-vape.
Okay,
they're burning leaves.
Sure.
No, I just realized you need to have a collaboration of everybody. So then I'm not the guy going like, don't tell me what's funny.
Right.
Because the minute you say, don't tell me what's funny, your career's over.
No, but I don't think you're ever that guy who would insist the old way is funny. It's just like, comedy is all about just try and fail.
Yeah.
So try and fail until you hit it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But and then, like you say, it's a collaboration. So if that person that girl has the joke or that boy has the joke or whatever it is, then great.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, maybe we can augment it with this. Do we like that? Do we don't like that? Like,
That's exactly.
It's just,
And I always, I've got young people in my company, and I'm always kind of like, just read this and make sure I don't sound like an old man in this. And a lot of times they'll flag something. Oh, cool. How would you do it? And that's same when I'm on the set. Especially all the women I direct. I get a joke, and they're like, "We didn't say this." I go, "Awesome. How would you say it?"
Let's stop there for a second, because that is something I want to talk to you about. One of the people I guess I had on this show a few weeks ago was saying that you were, and Bridesmaids and particularly Paul Feig movies were the reasons they thought to go into comedy. This young actress.
Oh, that's so cool.
And she said that because your sensibility, the sensibility of Bridesmaids and the things you do really hit home to her. And
that's great.
And it's fascinating to me that you have done such purposely collaborated with women or because you feel like you can bring to light a lot of, you can help in that world, whereas a lot of guys would feel, I guess I couldn't help in that world. I mean, but so how do you have the balls to be a woman director, and B, what is it that you're doing that other people aren't?
Well, I'm just more comfortable telling women's stories. I think all my friends growing up were girls, and I had so many bullies. So all my friends were either girls or really feminized guys like myself, or super nerds, like I was back then too. So I think watching so much comedy over the years and seeing how women's roles were so great, like the 30s and 40s, Rosalind Russell, pick whatever names you want. And then watching it suddenly become women just become props in these movies.
Automatons,
and these guys are all trying to get laid and all that stuff. And I was just like, ugh, I hate this. And then it was really the turning point for me was when I saw Sarah Silverman in School of Rock, which is a great movie.
Right.
But she just plays this awful mean character, then Rachel Harris in The Hangover. I'm like, I know these people. They're really funny.
Right.
Why are they having to be these bitchy, just, terrible characters? Right. And I was like, I want to try to tell stories with three-dimensional women characters. And again, just because that's my comfort zone too.
Right.
And the key for me is just like, you just collaborate with women, because I'm not going and going, all right, here it is, ladies. It's like, what do you think of this? How would you do this?
But there's no difference in my experience between funny women and funny men in terms of what's funny.
You wouldn't think.
Why is it so like you're the female comedian whisperer in that way?
I don't know if I am. I think I just embrace those projects. And I think a lot of guys just kind of run from them, or they try to make the female characters act more male. I mean, that doesn't make sense, but you can't write a female character and a male character the same way. And sometimes you almost go like, oh, did they just like flip like a woman into that role?
Right.
So, but it just comes from, I can't even tell you how it is. I can't tell you how you do that. All I know is what I write, and then I give it to the actor or my producing partners or the women in my office, and go like, is this right? What do you think? And they're like, oh, well, we can do this, but we do that. Oh yeah, that's accurate. And then the final thing is just having been, most of my friends are women, I'm just kind of more tuned into the way they communicate and have fun.
When you did Bridesmaids and you worked with a troupe of incredibly funny women,
unbelievable,
and it was really fantastic, but every single one of them got a chance to shine.
Yeah.
Was that purposeful? Was that in the script, or was that like you took the time to say, we got to give this person their moment?
No, I mean, we just knew we wanted everybody to have a moment. I mean, honestly, sometimes I watch and go like, oh, I wish someone, a couple of them had more to do. We had more stuff we shot. It's just, wrangling it down to time, but definitely wanted to make sure everybody got showcased.
Right.
Because I mean, the audition process for that was really interesting, because we kind of saw everybody in town.
Right.
And it was really, once we kind of narrowed it down to about 24 people we really liked, that we would bring them all in, and okay, you group of three do this, and just pairing up people up and seeing their chemistry. So when you finally found that group, the super group, you're like, holy shit, their chemistry is great. Every one of them is different. Right. And that was the biggest thing. Like, they have to represent a different side of marriage.
Right. Last thing we do here is, by the way, thank you for being here. But this is still just so great to see you. Just to see you.
I love seeing you.
So we do something called the moment of joy.
A moment of joy.
That's the great Charlie Kogan.
It is.
the great Charlie Kogan.
I'm sure this has been talked about, but your son is the most talented person I've ever met.
He is an anomaly in our family. So he's very talented, adorable. He is doing well at Stanford. He's about to play SpongeBob in SpongeBob the Musical up in Stanford. Yeah, so
please send him my love.
I will, absolutely. So what is something, and I'm going to exclude gin from the conversation that brings you joy, that consider like really sort of brighten your heart when it happens, and something maybe that you seek out that brightens your heart?
Great times with friends.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite thing is like dinner with friends.
Yes.
But the friends that you're really close with.
Yeah.
I just look forward to that. I can't ever not do it if somebody offers something and I got something else. It's like I'll try to get out of the other thing just because I just find it so much fun and it's so cathartic and everything.
Yeah.
Because I work with so many people and I really love everybody I work with.
Right.
But sometimes, you're on a production and you're, especially when you're off on a location, you're like, I don't really have any friends here. I've just got a lot of people I really like, but nobody I can kind of confide in and stuff. So
all right. Well, I mean, that is beautiful.
Now I have to credit you. You said something. You wrote something on Twitter. You posted something years ago that is one of the rules I live by.
Which is what?
Fellas, keep an eye on your ear hair. It's the silent embarrasser.
Listen, these babies are clean.
I'm telling you, I made sure I was cleaned up before I came over. But it's the greatest. It's the greatest advice ever.
You get older, hair starts popping up out of weird places. You just don't know.
And I've had so many times I'm kind of like, I look really great, and then like, oh my God, it's been months. It's like an afro growing out of my ears. So thank you, Jay, for all the many gifts you've given me. That's
my moment of joy right there.
All the time.
That I could, my ear hair advice has really traveled. Thank you for being here. This is great, and I want to thank the listeners and audience for watching or listening or whatever you're doing. It's great to have you. Please, if you have any suggestions for me about how I ruined this interview, because I'm still figuring this out, write me at dbawjk@gmail.com. And thanks for not being alone with me. And please take the time out of your day to share something with someone. Find a friend and be a friend to somebody and connect with somebody. That's the whole
Listen to this man. He knows what he's talking about.
That and ear hair.
That's
All
right.
Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't be alone.